All right, this is a little bit of a niche, but not really, because Buffalo is such a hardcore football town. I guarantee you, anybody that's a Bills Mafia member or a hardcore Bills fan or hardcore NFL or hardcore football fan, fantasy football, whatever, knows the guy that I'm talking to here in this episode of Bull in the Basement. He's my buddy Tyler Dunne. It's golongtd.com. It's his subscribable website with all kinds of incredible football knowledge. I mean, your options include his podcast with Isaiah McKenzie, which is both video and audio, his articles that are remarkable. They're not just Buffalo stuff. It's all around the NFL because you've lived and worked around the NFL forever. Buffalo News, you worked for a while. Bleacher Report, worked with the Packers for a while. Hi. I'm glad we could finally do this, man. It's been a bit.
Oh my God, Bull. I'm so glad we're doing it. And man, I'm sorry it's taken this long. Like, yeah, I'm glad you rattled that all off. It gives me excuse to say I've been busy, but love you. Great to be here. We're making it happen. It's great to see you doing your own podcast, man. So we'll have to make this a thing.
Hey, are we gonna is the media basketball game gonna happen again or what, man?
You know what's crazy is, so I was playing basketball with a lot of guys in the media here, like pick up ball all the time. And then I met my future wife. We get married. We have one kid. We have two kids. I haven't played in a basketball game, I want to say, in like 4.5 years.
Oh,
and it used to be something we do every week. Like Jay Skursky, Jonah Bronstein, we'd go play all the time at downtown, and it just hasn't happened, man. Life changes, probably for the best though, because you know, I'm at that age, 34, where, I mean, the Achilles, that starts to get a little sore. You know, you start feeling something coming on. It's like, shit, I better stop. I gotta stop. I gotta get out. I don't want to get surgery right now.
Yeah, you don't want to be John Scott.
Oh man, he can ball. I love playing with John.
He's a good athlete.
Good pick and roll partner, man.
Yeah.
He can get down and dirty in the paint.
Yep. But those games were definitely fun. And the beauty of it is that, you know, nobody was really super. Who was it? Was it so Joe Licata would come and play occasionally. Was it Weiser that he brought?
Yes,
was it Matt
Weiser?
Weiser?
That's right.
Who would and Matt Weiser, for you that don't know, played tight end at UB. I think he had a little was he like Bengals maybe for a second in the NFL?
Have a hot minute. Yeah.
Something like that. And so now he's back. I think he's coaching Timon High School in Buffalo. But he's like what, 6'4". I mean,
you're talking about Matt, right?
Yeah. So it was pretty unfair because he's a pro athlete, and just most pro athletes are pretty decent at most sports that are, you know, on their feet generally. And of course he's dunking. Like, it was so unfair in those games. It was so unfair. Like, Rodak,
he could run the court, man. He could run the court too, up and down.
He was a great athlete. And we're all huffing and puffing and just barely trying to keep up. Like Mike Rodak, who's now in Alabama. Now he's a tall kid. So you're thinking, all right, listen, we're going to put the tall kid on the tall guy. And it was just, it was not, no.
That's that's what you call a mismatch right, I think there. So. That's a little bit of a mismatch. Yeah. And Joe, you might've been there that morning with Licata. So, you know, we're talking Western New York's all-time leader in 3 points made. I think he still has the record. He did then. And I just remember one of the games that we were playing, he airballed one, maybe clanked the second one. And then all of a sudden he found his touch. He drained like 8 or 9 threes in a row, well beyond the arc. And the game was over just like that. So you can see why Joe Licata is Joe Licata. He was unbelievable. For sure.
And he's doing great over at UB now. So congratulations to him. But enough about all those cats.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you. So you're born and raised in Western New York. You played a little high school football and some other sports, I'm assuming.
You got it, Bull. Yeah, grew up down in God's country, down in the sticks, man. The further south you get, I feel like the nicer people are. I don't know. Just loved growing up in the country. Just down in Great Valley, New York. Went to high school at Ellicottville. I think we graduated like 47, 48.
Wow.
Very small school, but loved it. Played football, basketball, ran track with Franklinville because we didn't have a track team. It was great. We actually played at the stadium a few times. We had a pretty good team back in the day.
That's fun. That's really fun. And then you went on to Syracuse. And tell me about the Syracuse teams that you were there to watch in terms of basketball and football. And I'm assuming football probably wasn't particularly good because they haven't been good in a very, very long time. But basketball was probably decent, I'm assuming, when you were there.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was at Syracuse, so I mean, I credit the Daily Orange, our student newspaper, for anything I've really done in the business. It was we were learning on the job. We were really covering these Syracuse teams like it was a professional job. I mean, it was a daily newspaper, independent from the university, so we could write what we wanted, say what we wanted, had that autonomy. But I covered both all the three major teams: lacrosse first, then the basketball team, and then the football team. Or I'm sorry, football team and basketball team. And football wise, it was Doug Marone's first year at Syracuse. So it was crazy. I mean, that team was a lot of fun to cover. They weren't very good, but Marone was Marone. I mean, all the stories that your listeners have read and heard from his Bills days, we saw firsthand at Syracuse. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm trying to, Greg Paulus was the quarterback. Okay. Mike Williams was that receiver, obviously from Buffalo.
Yep.
And just crazy stories with Mike Williams where Marone made it really seem like he quit the team when he really kind of was kicked off the team over a whole bunch of stuff that we wrote about. It was nuts. So it was a lot of fun. And then the basketball team was incredible.
That was Mello, right? Was that Mello?
No, this was well after Mello, actually.
Well after, okay.
They had Wes Johnson, Andy Routens, Arinze Onuaku, Scoop Jardine, Brandon Trish. So that team, I mean, that might have been the best team that Jim Boeheim's ever had. I bet you he would tell you that in an honest moment, but they lost to Butler in the Sweet 16. I mean, they were the number 1 overall seed.
Was that Brad Stevens' Butler?
Brad Stevens' Butler team. Gordon Hayward.
Yeah,
Rick Jackson just got kind of pushed around there by Matt Howard.
Was that the Syracuse team that played in Buffalo that year in the tournament?
Yes. Yep. Okay. They beat Gonzaga in Buffalo that year. You got it.
Yep. I was there for that. And how weird is that? I mean, you're in Buffalo, you go to a tournament game, which for me, in terms of like sporting events that happen here, and there's been a lot of them, but I live for that, right? I mean, like I live for the golf majors to come to Oak Hill, and I live for the NCAA to come to bring the basketball tournament to Buffalo. Those are the two things I really live for sports-wise, because the Bills and the Sabres, they're here. We do it all the time. It is what it is. But those two, because they're only here every few years, man, when they come, they're so special. So you go to that tournament in Buffalo, and there's Mark Few, there's Boeheim. I can't remember the other teams that were there, but I remember one other previous time, like Bobby Knight was there, like Krzyzewski was there, like just legends coming through our gym, if you will. and they're right in front. It's like, I can't wait till it comes back. And I think next year or a year from 2 years from now or whatever it is, Oak Hill gets another major. Those are the two things that I most look forward to in Buffalo sports, man.
It is wild. I mean, and the support that the sport gets is incredible. Like, I wish that NBA teams would just have games at the arena. I mean, I'm a big NBA guy, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I feel like the support for basketball is there. And it is just cool when something different comes through. I mean, the World Juniors are always unbelievable. I just remember being at the Buffalo News in 2010. I think it was right before I went to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. The World Juniors were there, so we were covering it. And I mean, the atmosphere when U.S. played Canada was electric. It was like the Stanley Cup playoffs where, I mean, obviously a lot more Canadian fans than U.S. fans.
Right.
They kind of raided the arena, but it was unbelievable. You couldn't hear yourself think that night.
Yeah. And then obviously like the hockey games at the stadium, obviously are things that are they're so rare. And when they happen, they're so absolutely freaking amazing. Anyway, so, okay. All of that, you went to Syracuse, you did your thing, you got all your jobs that I've sort of alluded to. So let's get to Green Bay. And so you lived in Milwaukee, I'm assuming, because you worked at the paper there, but you covered the Packers, right?
Yeah, so I worked at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, but since I just covered the Packers, I lived in Green Bay, a couple hours north of Milwaukee.
Yeah, sure.
So yep.
So tell me about that. Because I've been to Green Bay when I worked with the Bills, and I've been to Lambeau, and I tell people all the time that I've never been. It reminds me so much of Orchard Park in terms of you're driving through a neighborhood and boop, Lambeau just pops up. Am I right?
It's almost even way more extreme than Orchard Park. I mean, you could drive across the state of Wisconsin, see nothing but fields and farms and nothingness, and then boom, there's Lambeau Field. It's it's unbelievable, really. I mean, the fact that they can support an NFL team there, obviously it's publicly owned, so that they're never going to move. But as the NFL just becomes this billion dollar industry where everything's bigger and better and going to bigger markets, it's pretty cool that there's a team in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I loved living there. I really did. It's kind of funny. Your prime is your mid-20s, right? Like that's when you should be having the best time of your life and living in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But it was great. I mean, the people are beyond friendly. You could go to a bar and make 5 friends in an hour. I mean, literally did that. Two of my best friends out there actually just met there. And next thing I know, on the weekends, I'm just barbecuing at their houses. So, there's that charm to the area that you don't get anywhere else. But it is so similar to Buffalo in that, I mean, win or lose, everybody's emotions are riding on what happens every Sunday. I mean, you could go to Starbucks the next morning and you just feel it. It's palpable. People are either euphoric or they're depressed. I was there for some crushing playoff losses. They lose to the Giants at Lambeau when they went 15-1. Colin Kaepernick beats them twice in the playoffs. The worst was probably the NFC Championship to Seattle. I mean, everything goes wrong in Seattle. They somehow lose that game, the onside kick. But you can feel all that next day. It's bitter cold. Way colder than Buffalo, by the way. More snow in Buffalo. The cold in Green Bay lingers into May and June, and people, it takes on their personality. So there's something special about that. You're not going to get that in most NFL markets. The Buccaneers lose, they're going to go to the beach the next day, right? Dolphins, they're just go to the beach next day. Yep. There's even the Patriots. Like there's other professional teams that are winning championships. In Green Bay and Buffalo, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, and for them, like us, it's if it's here go Bills, there it's go Pack, and there whatever their grocery store chain is, the day of a game or the day before a game, 80 to 90% of the people are wearing green, yellow, and white. I'm assuming, like here, red, white, and blue.
Yeah. You're right. You go out in town and somebody's just wearing a Josh Allen jersey out at the bar, right? And in Green Bay, you'll just see somebody out there with a Jordy Nelson jersey out of the bar. Oh, go out with some friends tonight, gonna have a few beers. Let me just get my jersey real quick, pop that on. So it's we can have that adults in jersey conversation at some point. That's a interesting maneuver, but that's just reality. And you don't think twice. Right. That's what people do.
You were talking about being 34. Talk to me in 20 years about what it's like to be my age, my friend. But listen, I'm my age and I have jerseys and I wear them in public. But that's what we do. That's our fandom, right? We're a little bit crazy. And I get the adults in jerseys conversation that, what are you doing? You're a grown man or woman. What are you doing? Jerseys are for kids, yada, yada, yada. But I think there are exceptions to the rule based on where you are. And I think probably Buffalo and Green Bay are probably two of the prime examples of that.
Well, I'm not going to throw rocks at you too, because I do have a lot of NBA jerseys that may be busted out in the summertime. Some retro Charlotte Hornets gear. So I think that there definitely some flexibility there. We're getting in a gray area for sure.
So who's your NBA team?
Oh man, it's the Hornets. I don't know why. As a little kid, the teal was cool, right? Zoe, LJ, Muggsy, Kendall Gill, Glenn Rice, Anthony May. It was just a fun team as a little kid to watch. So I mean, I just kind of stayed with it out of nostalgia, I guess. And they're fun to watch now with LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges. They got a really good team.
The Bobcats now, right?
So they were the Bobcats for a while, and then Michael Jordan bought the team and kind of ruined them personnel-wise. But yeah, they're the Hornets again.
Okay. So here's the thing with me. And again, this is my age showing up, and I'm going to be grumpy old man, get off my lawn guy. But I'm the guy that grew up. So when I started watching basketball, it's probably college basketball first. It was the late 70s. So it was Duke. It was Notre Dame. It was North Carolina. I mean, a lot UCLA, a lot of the powers that, have sort of fluctuated over the years. Some have been consistent, even Syracuse. So Syracuse for me, like I was a huge Syracuse fan growing up. Roosevelt Bowie, Louis Orr. And then that graduated on to Pearl Washington. And from there on to Douglas. I have a signed Derek Coleman jersey in my man cave.
Nice.
Coleman, Cycli, those teams, right? And then from there on to Mello and to Jerry McNamara. I have a Jerry McNamara jersey, right? So like GMAC. Yeah. But anyway, so back then, you watch college basketball and you're following these teams and you're following the players, and everybody's playing 4 years, right? There's no one and dones. And then they graduate into the NBA. And so now you have all of these great college rivalries that now moves directly into the NBA. That's why Magic and Bird was such a big thing, right? And now for me, that's why the NBA is so hard for me right now, because you don't have that. So you have so many one and dones, you have so many international players, and I'm not ragging on either one of those two, but if you don't follow the league really closely, you have no idea who most of the players are, in my opinion, outside of maybe 4 to 6 guys on every team, maybe, if you're an NBA fan, right? So it's hard for me to watch and get into the NBA because I just don't know guys.
I agree. I mean, I miss that. Even back when I was in college, the Big East was awesome. I mean, you had players that stuck with those teams. Even Syracuse, because James Boeheim isn't exactly good at sending people to the NBA. So, I mean, he does keep a lot of guys, but Georgetown, Nova, UConn. I mean, the players at least stuck around 2-3 years, and you built up some rivalries. You got to know them because you saw them in the Big East tournament. I mean, for a conference tournament, it doesn't get any better than that. It was fun to watch. Obviously, we remember the 6 overtime game, Syracuse, UConn, but the rivalries, the battles, these teams legitimately hate each other. It's real. I remember going to cover Syracuse game at Providence when we were in college. I mean, Providence wasn't very good, but the Dunkin' Donuts Center, it was nuts. I mean, Andy Rounds is from Canada, and all these students are yelling, like, where's your green card? I mean, there's like legitimate chants and cheers that may or may not make their way on the TV copy. And I mean, there is something cool about like there being real bad blood, but you're not going to get that when players are, I mean, even some of these players will play half of a season, if that, as a freshman, and then go to the NBA. Yep. So it does kind of stink. And you're right. And so when they get to the NBA, you don't really have that connection with the players. You don't really know them that well. Eventually you do, because they're just going to be really, really good. But it does probably hurt the brand in a sense. And I don't know, I guess, I do love the NBA, but COVID was weird, right? They had a season a couple years ago, but there weren't really fans. It was hard to get into that. I think that kind of spilled into this past year where there were some really good games, and it was great to see the Milwaukee Bucks win it all, but it's not the NFL. I mean, I feel like the NFL is king. I can't really put my finger on it for why, but I don't know if any league is even close to popularity right now.
Yeah. And the other thing with basketball, I think basketball has become more of a individual sport than a team sport. I mean, think about it. The Raptors are terrible. They NBA champs a couple years ago, right? The Heat not long ago were at the top of the heap of the NBA. They've kind of gone like this, right? The Clippers, you get Kawhi Leonard, everything, they're going to be great. And everybody's following basically players to their destinations instead of following teams. And that's probably why, in my opinion, you're never going to see any kind of a dynasty ever again in the NBA. You're never going to see like the Knicks all of a sudden. And I look at the Knicks and they're good. And I can't believe we're spending all this time on basketball. You're a football guy, but it's fun. Because I never have this outlet to talk basketball really. But you look at the Knicks and I'm like, they're really good, but who do they got? Right? I mean, they got Julius Randle. They acquired Kemba Walker, which I thought was awesome. I'm a huge fan of his, especially when he played for the Celtics. And then after that, you're kind of like high draft picks like Barrett and Kevin Knox are garbage, really. I mean, in the end, and I'm like, how possibly can a team that is just kind of a bunch of Derrick Rose is way past his prime, in my opinion. Like, how are these teams good? I just don't get it.
I think that, and that's just such a great point that you make, Bull, because I think the NBA has become a league of mercenaries. It's controlled by a very small group of star players that talk to each other. They know each other really well. They're all friends, and they just kind of move around year to year. They're signing all these one-year contracts. They're keeping their flexibility, and the balance of power is going to shift year to year. I mean, it's nuts. You would not, I mean, in the NFL, that's what's, to bring it back to football, a lot of guys tried to do that this past offseason, right? Like Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, the star players in this league. I mean, Tom Brady has done it. He's the only one that's been able to do it. He goes to Tampa. He brings a lot of star power with him. but there's only one Tom Brady. He's the greatest ever. So these other guys try to do it, and Green Bay says, oh, no, you can make fun of us for 6 months if you want. You can publicly try to embarrass us, but you're under contract. You're going to be here. They kind of called Aaron Rodgers' bluff. Rodgers didn't retire. He showed up. They did whatever backdoor arrangement that they did, where maybe he's got the flexibility to be traded next year, but he wasn't traded. Russell Wilson wasn't traded. I think that the NFL, they don't want to become the NBA. Like the players drive the product. I get it, but the people who run the NFL, I think that they're terrified of it becoming that, where star players are moving all over the place all the time. But it won't get to that point. I don't think it will. There's not guaranteed contracts in the NFL. The owners are very, very smart. They're not going to give players that kind of flexibility. And I think we saw that last offseason. Didn't happen.
Yeah. So, okay. You mentioned something that I really wanted to ask you about, and that would be Aaron Rodgers. So you've been around Aaron Rodgers. So was Aaron Rodgers just like this summer? Was he just in a bad mood, or is like, was he just, did he need to be in the media? Like what happened there? Because he seems like he gets to Green Bay, right? He walks in and everything seems really casual. And it seems like the turnaround is a little bit rocky, maybe for like 3 days. It's a little weird for like 2 or 3 days. You see some of the pressers, right? Now it's just like he's playing football and doing good again and throwing to his guys. He gets Randall Cobb back, right? So it's just like, what was he? I mean, I get it. He was posturing. He's Aaron Rodgers. He can be what he is, but he seemed like he was just in a mood. And because now he seems like he's just old Aaron Rodgers, right? So you know him, you've worked with him, you've talked to him, you've interviewed him. What do you think went down there?
No, the Packers were sabotaging themselves with all of those reports over those 6 months. But Rich, of course they were. I mean, that's what's ridiculous. I mean, right now Aaron Rodgers he's trying to pretend it away, like those 6 months like didn't happen, right? Like everything was fine all along, and there's wisdom in silence, whatever verbiage he's using on his weekly radio program. Like and it's, I get, things are fine. If he's under contract, if he's playing football, he's not going to dog it. Like, he's at his best when he plays motivated, when he has that chip on the shoulder, when he's pissed off. Like, we've seen it. Like, they draft Jordan Love, he goes out and he wins the MVP. So I don't think the Packers are worried about him just not being vested out there on the field. But clearly there's bad blood there. Clearly he was upset. Like, those reports aren't just coming out of thin air, and they're not coming from the Green Bay Packers. Why would the Packers put out that Aaron Rodgers wants to be traded? Aaron Rodgers might retire, and Aaron Rodgers is unhappy. That's clearly coming from Rodgers' camp. Right. So that's where I get a kick out of him now, like, mocking anybody who dare say that things were bad in the offseason. Like, no, that was coming from you and your representation. Like, you wanted out. We all knew it. Wasn't just me reporting it. It's Adam Schefter. It's Charles Robinson. It's some of the best in the business, local, national, saying that he couldn't coexist with the general manager. It starts with Brian Gutekunst, like, for drafting Jordan Love. And he's a stubborn person. It's part of what makes him Aaron Rodgers great.
Yeah.
Whether the slight is real or perceived, he's going to use it, manufacture it, and kick ass. Like, that's just what he's done his whole career. Back to when nobody wanted him.
Right.
But it's like, I get the Packers' logic, though. I do. I mean, if you were to ask me, I think they did the right thing. I mean, you're not going to have a shot at a franchise quarterback when you're constantly making the playoffs. If you believe in this guy and your quarterback's getting closer to 40 years old, you take him. At the very worst, like, it's a 25th overall pick, whatever he was, and you've got an asset that you can move in a trade. Like, it's and for Aaron Rodgers to get all upset about that is so ironic, because that's how he got his opportunity in the first place. Ted Thompson drafted Aaron Rodgers when they had Brett Favre.
Right. When
Brett Favre was still, he believed, in the prime of his career. So, long story short, everybody's winning right now because he's there for at least this year. He's playing really well. The team's playing really well, and they're singing Kumbaya. But I don't think that the problem necessarily floated away into the ether.
Okay, so again, you've been fairly close to him when you were there. So is he what he appears to be? I mean, he seems to be like this super awesome dude that you want to hang out with and have beers with, and you watch him on Jeopardy hosting, and you see him on the State Farm commercials, and like, man, this dude seems so cool. He seems so chill. But he also has these times when he's kind of off a little bit, right? I mean, and I guess, when you're that celebrity as he is, I guess you can have those days. We all do, right? So, like, for you, how would you describe Aaron Rodgers as a guy?
Well, as a player, he's unbelievable. Obviously,
Sure.
one of the best ever. As a guy, when I was on the beat, we did do several one-on-ones. I used to sit down with him every spring for close to an hour when he had that time, and very, very smart. If you ask smart questions, he's going to give you smart answers. I think his brain operates at a different level than most people on this planet. But we're not very close now. He wasn't too thrilled with stories that I wrote at Bleacher Report. When things went down with Mike McCarthy and the Packers in 2018. I have a ton of sources with the team and around the team, and just thought, okay, I'm going to figure out what the hell happened here. Try to, anyways. So I just reached out to as many people as possible. Didn't paint anybody really in a great light. I mean, if you're doing an autopsy, things aren't going to be very hunky dory. I'm sorry. Like it was ugly. It was ugly. But I think the readers, the fans, they deserve that, even though one of them actually told me to go find a rope in my basement and hang myself.
Whoa, jeez. Wow.
Some of them weren't necessarily happy, but I think that a lot appreciate, finding out what happened. So, I write the story. Aaron Rodgers expectedly a few days later sits down with his friend in the media that he used to do a show with, and has grievances. And it's, his program now is week to week grievances with the media. It seems he loves ripping the media. One of his favorite things to do. To answer your question though, when you wade into the personal, there's always so many sides to a story.
Yep.
But I'll just say this: people who were very, very close to him, family, friends, have all been cut out. And I think that, it started about 2014 when family was cut out and friends were cut out. And I mean, I'm not breaking any news here. I mean, I wrote it in the first Bleacher Report story I did. Christmas presents were sent back. Didn't go to grandfather's funeral that he was very close to. One of his closest friends from college was going to be in the wedding. Didn't go to that. And for whatever reason, they're just all out. And I don't know, talking to people on that side of things, you're not going to necessarily hear the best stuff. But yeah, I don't know Aaron Rodgers on a personal level since when I was really on the beat. It's, he doesn't want to get into all that himself. But I will say this: when I did the story on the breakup and the divorce and what happened with the Packers, there were a lot of teammates who didn't have the greatest things to say. Greg Jennings, Jermichael Finley, they catch a lot of crap because, here they go. Well, that's his number one receiver and his number one tight end, the peak of his career. I think their opinions do matter. And I thought Ryan Grant really put it best. He said, he really described that chip on the shoulder. Like, Aaron Rodgers did not forget that Mike McCarthy drafted Alex Smith when he was with San Francisco. He was part of that draft pick as the offensive coordinator. And that personality trait is always going to be there. Like, there's a grittiness to it. There's an edge to him. But my point being, his teammates now, you only really hear good things. I think he gets along great with teammates now. I think as he's gotten older, maybe he has matured, seen the bigger picture. It seems like he's getting along. I think he really gets along with his current offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, who was in Buffalo, obviously, and Syracuse before that.
Yep.
They've got a great relationship. I think LaFleur, it's good enough. It's not as bad as it was with McCarthy. Maybe not as great as everybody makes it seem publicly, but they get along fine. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, he hasn't come out and said he's going to be in Green Bay the rest of his career. I think Green Bay's hope is that things go so well this year that he wants to stay.
Yeah.
And then they do something with Jordan Love. But it's a rambling answer to your question. He's a complex guy.
Yeah,
he's a complex guy.
That is the best way to describe him, for sure. So in the NFC North, and I just thought this for a second, have you gotten like, if you were to put a Bears hat on, you do know who you look like, who your doppelganger is. You are Matt Nagy.
Oh no!
I know. It's not, and that would mean you'd have COVID now. If you were him, which would be not great. But anyway, it just came to me. I don't know, because we're talking.
Oh wow! Oh well.
We're talking MCU.
I got to get these Bears in order, then, man. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing with this play call and quarterback charade, but I'll figure it out.
So, golongtd.com is what you're doing now. You got your Isaiah McKenzie video audio podcast there. You have interviews and articles with all kinds of players. So how do you choose a story? How do you choose who you're going to interview? Because I'm going through your website and I'm looking at some of the different people you've interviewed. It's really kind of random. Like, I don't know if it's you're talking to your people and they're like, man, you should do a story. This guy, his story, his background is crazy. Is it like that? Is like, how do you go around the league and say, man, I've heard some things about this guy. I got to talk to him, even though the general NFL fan might not be that aware of who that guy is. He might be a sort of a mid-range, fantasy guy, for instance. How do you choose the guys that you're going to do stories on?
It's a great question. I mean, I wrestle with that every morning, right? But when I launched Go Long, I guess it starts there. I really wanted it to be a home for original storytelling around pro football. May sound vague, but I really don't want it to be vague. I really feel like with where most coverage is going when it comes to the NFL is GIFs and tweets and bullshit and trying to be funny on Twitter. Like it's the Twitterification of the game, of media. And, I'm not saying everything's terrible. There's a lot of really good people who do really good stuff out there, clearly. I mean, long form and the beat job. There's still, some pockets in media that I try to read, try to follow. But by and large, I mean, look, Bleacher Report, they got rid of all the writers in one fell swoop. They basically said, BR Mag, this feature storytelling operation, like, you no longer exist. Like, we are moving away from that, and it's mostly about memes, and cartoons.
It's microwave media now, right? I mean,
that's the best way to put it,
right?
Yep. And ESPN and some legacy outlets, like I said, a lot of good people scattered about the league's own television network. Like, they are driving coverage in a certain direction, and I think that by and large, there's a lot of teams that like that. They like the fact that there aren't media in locker rooms this year. COVID is a debate unto itself, but reporters aren't in the locker room, and they haven't been for 2 years now.
Yep. And
I think some teams are more helpful than others. For example, Jacksonville Jaguars, awesome. Went down there, hung out with Laviska Shenault for an hour. His dad was hit by a truck and died. He saw it at a young age. To your point, the radar goes up. That's a story. But I think a lot of teams, like, they do kind of want to make it difficult. So when I launched Go Long, it was like, all right, fans, they deserve to learn about what they're watching on TV. They're the ones making this league possible. They're the ones buying these tickets at ridiculous prices and jerseys at ridiculous prices. Like, I want to give them something beyond the Zoom press conference that's being shoved into their face every day. So having covered the Packers, the Bills, working at Bleacher Report for 11 years, whatever it's been, I've got enough sources all around the league, whether it's players, agents, PR people, teams, coaches, scouts. And I just kind of like canvas everything and wait for that moment for the light bulb to go off, to answer your question. Okay, like, that's different, right? That's beyond a guy just working hard. That's beyond a guy just scoring a lot of touchdowns. Like Laviska Shenault, I had heard that, and holy cow, I got to get to Jacksonville. I got to talk to him about that. Last week, Deontay Harris for the Saints. Actually, his agent grew up in Allegheny, like a town over. Shane Costa, exceptional human being, great guy. Definitely should get him on the podcast. Maybe even come on.
It's funny because I had Don Purdy on, who wrote the Thunder, Snow, and Buffalo book about the October storm, and he and Shane are coworkers, I think. I think they work for the same company. Yeah, so that's gonna happen. That's awesome. Thank you for the reminder. Anyway,
so I mean, I knew he had Deontay Harris as one of his clients, the Saints wide receiver returner. I didn't know anything about Deontay Harris, to be honest. I just knew he's one of the smallest players in the league. But I got to talking with him and having a conversation. I try not to have interviews, just want to have conversations. And about 20 minutes in, he said how he nearly quit football a month ago, that he was depressed. His girlfriend had a miscarriage. One of his best friends died. He was arrested for a DUI. Everything was happening at once. And he literally bought a plane ticket to fly back home to Baltimore to quit football. And then we went down that road and it became a story. So Yeah, I get it. Like you go on golongtd.com and you're seeing, oh, there's a story on this and a story on that. And like, what's he doing here? That's kind of what's trying to drive me, is just find something original that's worth reading.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're both sort of, and kind of circling back, we're both on this sort of country road that not a lot of people travel down typically, trying to bring content to people. I mean, we're both doing long form stuff that certainly is not popular in 2021, but we both, I think, believe that our content is worth watching. And so, so fist bump to you, my man.
Because love seeing you do your thing, man. When somebody takes a chance like this and tries to create something, it's great to see. So anything that I can do, that we can do for each other, we should do it. This is where the business is going. I think. I really do. I think it's gonna be a la carte for the consumer. You know, pick and choose what you want in your life.
We haven't talked any Bills. I don't know how much time you have left, but very quickly, prior to the Tennessee loss, they were in some people's power rankings. Everybody does.
I'll never do a power ranking, I promise you.
Good. But for purpose of the conversation, right? People think they're the best team in the league. Prior to Tennessee game happens, they're out of a lot of people's top 5. Then everything happens this past weekend with Cincinnati, and there's the Raiders. I mean, in terms of AFC alone, Chargers are off, but I think still people think they're really good, even though what happened to them did in Baltimore. So I guess my question to you is, and I personally, I still say the Bills are the best team in the AFC, but what's your opinion on where they lie right now?
I think they're still one of the best teams in the league. I don't know who would be ahead of who at this point. You know, it's such a marathon. It's such a long season. If I had a concern early on, it's like, geez, the Bills are peaking too soon. Like, how are they going to sustain this? How are you going to sustain a defense playing like this, a quarterback who's clearly one of the best in the NFL while being healthy? That's hard to do. The most violent game on earth, when anything can happen against any team, any Sunday. The Titans lost to the Jets, for crying out loud. So I think that was my takeaway from that Titans game, honestly, was that is the best thing that could have happened to the team. Not necessarily that they won or lost, but that you were in a moment late in the game and you went for it. And I get it, the analytics and the numbers, they tell you to go for it in that situation. But still, Sean McDermott is a coach who was kicking field goals against Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game a year ago. Like, you can't do that. You might as well put your own head in the guillotine, and it's over at that point. Kicking that field goal at the end of the first half, I mean, that was just ridiculous. And why even show up in the third quarter? So the fact that he went for it there instead of playing for overtime is good. I mean, that's good for the team's soul. That's what the players want. The players want to go for it. They want you to believe in them. They don't want you to settle for field goals. So I think the Bills are in a great spot. If their coaching staff is going to stay aggressive, if their defense, it was ugly against Derrick Henry, but I get it. It's usually ugly for every defense playing Derrick Henry. Their defense can kind of get back on track, which they should. The next 3 games should be cakewalks. The Bills will be fine. The Bills are going to have a shot at that number 1 seed still. And if the road to the Super Bowl goes through Western New York in January, it's going to be hard to bet against the Bills.
Yep. Yeah. And then I know this isn't really in your wheelhouse, but I do know you've been to a lot of stadiums in the league. So let me ask you this. I mean, there's obviously a huge debate over a new stadium. Looks like it's going to happen, but the debate isn't about whether it's going to happen or not. The debate is where it's going to be located. So how much do you know about it? Do you have a preference? Do you think one's better than the other? I mean, I don't know how educated you are on the whole thing at all, but what are your thoughts?
Right. I started our conversation here by saying that people are just nicer the further away from the city you get, right? So I can't go back to the city at this point. keep it at Orchard Park, for the love, the tailgating, the fun. I mean, logistically, I don't know how it even worked downtown. I mean, you'd have to build new highways. I mean, you have 18,000 for a Sabres game, and you're sitting in traffic forever, going in, going out if it's packed. I mean, back in the day when they were winning. I can't imagine if the
What do you mean back in the day?
Yeah, it's been a bit, man.
They're winning.
Oh, they're winning now. Hey, I'm all in. I'm all in. Sabres are going to the Cup this year. Mark it down. No, I'm all in. I'm just saying, it was tough to get to a game.
Yes, I know.
It really was. And get out. Now, you go from 18,000 to 65,000 or whatever the proposed is. How is that even going to work? People are going to be waiting in their cars for 4 or 5 hours. Coming down from Canada, it's just not realistic unless you completely redid the roads. So I don't know, man. I think it's got to be Orchard Park. I think it will get done. It's a matter of who's paying for it, right? That's where it gets interesting is like, I don't think that the ownership wants to completely pay for it themselves. There's going to be battles with the state. It could get ugly. It probably is getting ugly. I'll say this too, in Green Bay, they had to do a huge renovation at the turn of the century to kind of keep up with the times. The bowl in the 90s was getting old, decrepit. They needed to. They're getting the pressure to. And you would think, okay, like the Packers, of course, the taxpayers passed at flying colors. I mean, what else what else is there to do there? Well, I'll tell you, the president of the team, the de facto owner, basically, Bob Harlan, he went door to door asking people to vote yes. I mean, in Brown County, it was a huge deal, and it still only passed 53 to 47.
Wow.
To do this huge project. So it was close in Green Bay. When you start talking about people's paychecks, especially in this economy with the gas prices, and it's tough just to make ends meet, to ask taxpayers to pay more for a stadium that no team needs a new stadium. I mean, you have a field to play. I don't think Buffaloians are just going to be like, all right, yeah, here's a blank check. It's going to get interesting.
And that's the other thing too, that I think needs to be talked about is that when people, especially Bills fans here in Western New York, they hear and read and think all about this. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe we're fitting the bill. Well, it's not all Western New York that's fitting the bill. The entire state's fitting the bill, right? People in New York and in the Adirondacks and in Binghamton all are fitting the bill like we did for, baseball stadiums and the Brooklyn hockey rink and all of that. Like, we're all responsible for the state. So I think people think, and I think it's a misconception that I hate when I hear. It's like, oh my God, we're paying for the whole thing. And no, we're not. It's going to be a shared state expense. Obviously, county wise, I suppose something will come out, but like, I think Western New Yorkers are hung up on we're the only ones paying for it, and I don't think that's really the case.
That's where I definitely have to educate myself. Like, how much is state, how much is county? By and large, I do empathize for the general New York stater saying, what the hell? I feel like everybody pays in this whole state pays a ridiculous amount of taxes, and to throw something huge on top of that, I absolutely get why people would be pissed off.
100%. But it goes back to the whole thing where, and here's the flip side to all of that. And I know we're going long, and I really apologize, and I thank you for
no problem. No, that's good.
So we forever, we're shipping our money downstate, and New York's getting all of our money, and this is crap, and blah, blah, blah. Now we're going to get it here, right? Now they're paying for us. Like that's what I like about it, because
that's interesting.
In the past, we're paying for Yankee Stadium. We're paying for all those new Brooklyn arenas for their basketball and hockey teams. We're paying for, fill in the blank. Downstate, any place in New York State that's ever had a stadium or an arena built, everybody in the state's responsible for it. And we have bitched forever about, oh my God, we keep sending our money downstate. Well, guess what? Downstate, if all of this happens, is sending the money upstate for a change. So I'm like kind of happy about that. As you notice, I'm a little fired up about it too. But
so you're telling me you didn't enjoy the ex-governor's commercials, infomercials, touting himself as the person who helped keep the Bills in Buffalo. Right. I mean, every time Andrew Cuomo came on and he's using that as a plea for your vote. Okay, yeah, you saved the Bills, Andy. Gotcha.
I love the fact that you're on a first name basis with him. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I do not want to be. Definitely meant in jest. Trust me. Do not know him nor plan to.
Understood. All right. We've touched on a ton of stuff. Last thing, do you own a cheesehead, a foam cheesehead?
You know what? I grew up a Packer fan as a little kid, and that's a whole other story, but I did back then. I don't anymore. But I had one. Me and my dad, we used to go to a game every other year. It was just father-son trips I'll cherish forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did back in the day. Yeah.
Very cool.
And actually, I don't know if you have any Jimmy Buffett fans out there. I remember going to a Jimmy Buffett concert with my family. Family had a Jimmy Buffett concert, in 5th and 6th grade. But we did something with it. And I think I put a Finn in it, right? He's got the Finn song.
Yeah.
And we wrote like Cheesehead in Paradise or something.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you combine a few songs back in the day. I don't know why I just thought of that, but
wow, gosh,
that was a fun time.
Man, what the impact a Jimmy Buffett show would have on a 5th and 6th grader.
We saw some stuff.
I've seen Jimmy Buffett once as an adult, and I saw some stuff that impacted my life forever. And
gotta talk to my parents about that one.
Right? What did you crazy, man.
It was great. We went with another family. I mean, God, I kind of want to go back now that I'm 34.
It was honest to God, and you know my background. I've seen hundreds of concerts. That's probably the one time I saw Jimmy Buffett, probably in my top 10. It was just so much fun. The tailgate was like the music version of a Bills tailgate, right? I mean,
absolutely
bananas, absolutely bananas. We've gone like all over the map here. We did Jimmy Buffett, we did NBA, we did pickup basketball. And then we did a little bit of football thrown in, man. This has been a blast. Isaiah McKenzie, you're live. It's every Monday at 6, right? At Mister's in East Aurora, right?
So it's kind of the schedule's a little all over the place. So we've got 10 total episodes, 5 of which are going to be shot live at Mister's in East Aurora, 5 of which we're doing via Zoom. So all the information's at golongtd.com. You can just follow the prompts. But yeah, the next one is going to be this coming Monday. So if people want to come, I mean, you were there, it's packed. So you definitely want to get your reservation. And if you subscribe to Go Long, if you're a paid subscriber, you get first dibs on a table. So just let them know, subscribe, write it in the comment section on Open Table via the Mister's website, and you'll get a table.
And by the way, your logo is super cool. And
thanks.
Do you sell gear?
I do. Yeah. If you're interested, let me know. And if you subscribe and you want a shirt, just let me know. We'll hook you up too. I got to give him a shout out. John Daly, Brave Buffalo. Anybody driving throughout Western New York, you're going to see his work everywhere. I mean, he's a good buddy of mine, unbelievable artist. If you want him to like do anything for you, hey, I'll connect you with him too. But yeah, I thought he did a great job with it. I just told him like old school, bring it back, throwback, vintage, long form. Boom, he had it.
And the estate of Sammy Baugh is sending you some legal papers.
Bring it on, Sammy. Bring it on.
Dude, always great to see you. Thank you for doing this. I'm glad we could finally catch up. It's been a long time coming, but hope to see you Monday. I think I'm going to come out again and see the podcast and keep up the absolute terrific work. It's unique. It's cool. If you're a football fan, Bills fan, whatever team you're a fan of, definitely check out Tyler Dunne's stuff. GoLongTD.com. Thanks, pal. Appreciate it, man.
Pleasure is all here, Bull. Thanks so much for having me, man. We'll see you then.
Yeah, you bet.